You're listening to Respect Your Elders, Strengthening Intergenerational Queer Communities, a Pulitzer Center webinar. I guess a couple of months ago, I reached out to Vijayta, Shima, and Rajvi after reading another Pulitzer project called Queens of Queen City that we supported about drag queens in the American Appalachia. Everyone here should definitely check it out. It's a great project, photo-based. I'm going to drop it in here. Ray Geringer, a grantee and author, wrote for their project, one of the most pernicious outcomes of homophobic narratives has been to rob us of our queer elders. And this grief only deepens each time new legislation aimed at keeping queer and trans youth away from queer and trans adults is introduced in one state or another. Bills aimed at unraveling the intergenerational connections we've worked so hard to claim. And with this quotation of mine, I really wanted to, with panelists, think about these intergenerational queer mentorships and friendships. And so I'm really excited to welcome everybody today. We have 5 really great panelists. We have first up to Shima, Brennen, and Rajvi Desai, who are reporting fellows, 2023 reporting fellows, producing a documentary called Mother Wit. They graduated from Columbia University not long ago, and their film focuses on the unique approach to education, wisdom, and knowledge by a Black trans community in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, instilled by their late matriarch, Latravius Collins, or Mother Latravius. Keasha Houston is a member of the Crown Heights queer community and a Mother Wit collaborator. Vijayta Lalwani is an independent journalist based in London and Delhi. Her Pulitzer-supported project, Queer Lives in India, explores the aging and the lives of aging and queer elderly folks, or queer folks over 50, in both rural and urban regions of India. It was written for Queerbeat, a new digital-first publication based out of New Delhi, India. Maya Sharma, a feminist, is a writer by accident and a queer activist by choice. She is a member of Vikult, an organization in Gujarat, India, which advocates for the rights of marginalized women and gender and sexual minorities. Sharma collaborated with Lalwani on their Pulitzer-supported article, Long Shadows in the Sunset. Today's discussion is arranged into 3 different parts: time, family, and storytelling. Please put your questions in the chat as they come up, and we'll try to get to all of them around the 45-minute mark. I want to start with you, Vijayta. In your article, Long Shadows in the Sunset, you mentioned that queer people experience time differently. Can you explain to our audience what that means to you and to all of us?
Sure. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you so much for having us all on this panel today. So someone while I was working on the story, Long Shadows in the Sunset, someone, told me that the lifespans of queer people are very different. Now, what does this really mean? It means that we experience time very differently because we don't participate. Queer people do not participate in very heteronormative patterns. So it is this lack of chrononormativity in our lives. Our milestones are so different. For instance, we don't necessarily marry or have children. We don't have these cutout graphs, these career graphs or life graphs in front of us. There's so much trauma that we have to overcome. For instance, there's been a study conducted in 2016 which showed us that at least 50% of transgender people in India attempt suicide at least once before their 20th birthday. So what does that really tell us about, what our lifespan is like, how we're aging? There is so much uncertainty. And that is what I mean. That is what, we mean when we say queer time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vijayta. I want to extend that question a little bit to both Keasha and to Maya. In the sense of what do you think of legacy? What does it mean to you? I know, Keasha, you mentioned maybe you talked to some of your friends this weekend about it, but just like what does that word mean to you? And what is your relationship to aging at this point in your lives?
Yeah.
Oh, Keasha, I think you are muted.
Oh, my apologies.
I mean, legacy has something to do with the time you put in. It's you know, you be around people and they make themselves a part of your life and they make you bigger than who you are. And by living a legacy, sometimes you're not the one to you're not the one that make it your legacy. It's other people that make you a legacy sometimes. And I myself had a little I guess legacy moment at the barbecue. Um Saturday. A lot of people that came to the barbecue I haven't seen in a very, 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 very long time. So, and two of those, three of those people were my own family, and I didn't even know that they knew one of my best friends. And their kids remember me, like the kids see me walking up, they come running to me. I'm like, who the hell is these kids running over here to me? And they were my little cousins, and I haven't seen them in God knows how long. And how they went and just introduced me to other people, like I was some hot Hollywood auntie or something. I was like, okay. But it goes to show how people love you and how they think about you. And if something was to happen to me, or if I was to pass away or whatever, it made me feel good to know that people actually love me just like that. And those kids haven't seen me in like 5 years. And they're like 16 and 17 now. So I'm like, wow. I said, I must have left a good impression on them when they were kids. So it made me feel good. And I think everybody would love to have somewhat of themselves loved and remembered when they're gone. So it made me feel really good about myself. Sometimes we don't think that we're that important to ourselves, but we're a whole lot more to other people.
Yeah, that love is palpable. Maya, I want to give you
Yeah.
a chance.
Legacy. Let me look for it. Well, I have to really. I've had to look through books, through temples. Frozen in time and stone in the temples. It's been very difficult to really find out our past, what it has been, and whatever little one has found is also mostly related to biological men. And so it's very difficult for women, especially, to find in this very patriarchal control over reproduction. Women, especially queer women or lesbian women, have really uh, I've found them mostly in religious texts, ironically, or amongst the protest religion, I should say, or the Bhakti tradition, where women were allowed to live together, uh, uh, not as sexual beings, but as just female friendships, because female friendships is what has been recognized in our part of the world. And so you find many songs very subtly written about the monsoon rain or the wet earth, symbolizing desire. So legacy is very dissipated for us. So it's kind of really you have to look through various texts, oral narratives in order to figure out where we existed a time that was way, way past. Uh, Even in dramas, in Sufi poetry, you will find a hint or two. But it's all very ambiguous. But on the other hand, yet very romantic, since it's not uh, very visible, uh, told in beautiful similes and metaphors. So legacy for us has a very different meaning. I guess we still have to make those footprints for us to be legends. But yes, it was wonderful to hear Keasha, to know that she has kids who love her. For us, even if we have kids, perhaps we would have to conceal from them our identity, and so we still live uh, partly out and partly not out. And perhaps our legacy uh, um, panels like this perhaps will perhaps help us to really have some kind of a legacy and help us to leave it behind.
Rajvi, I know we spoke a little bit before this webinar began about visibility, and I know Maya is touching on that. You mentioned one trans filmmaker who was really interested in this. Do you mind telling our audience a little bit about what we were chatting?
Yeah. So hello, hi, I'm Rajvi. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot about like my own legacy and also just like the legacy of like trans communities, especially of color. And for me, I think I sometimes get obsessed about like what form that can take and what that can look like. Because yeah, so I tell Tashima this quote often too, and I heard it. So this trans historian Jules Gill Peterson said it in this movie Framing Agnes. And she says that the biggest lie we've been told as trans people is that visibility will be our emancipation. And I think when with like trans people of color, Black trans people especially, I would say when like there's so much hostility in society, like exposure and awareness and all of these things that we usually mean to be good, like becomes complicated when you're thinking about certain communities. And so I think in our work, like I've mainly seen legacy kind of like the format it takes is through people, is through family, through community. And it's like realized in community, furthered by community. And I'm not saying that the other more tangible ways that it cannot manifest, I'm not saying that, but I think there are lots of different and very many considerations when we think about publicity and remaining, remaining in a tangible thing like a film, for example. It gets complicated.
I did want to talk a little bit about as well. I know Maya, you mentioned 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right, of the closet, and I know like a lot of there are a number of queer folks in my life who draw a really hard line between pre and post transition, pre and post coming out. And these clean breaks, like as Rajvi mentioned, they can be liberating, but they can also be isolating. And I wanted to ask, about how, right, like, who you are, right, building connections between the communities who perceived you one way and now the communities, in which you can feel free to express who you are, right? What is that? What does that construction look like? And this is for all.
I want you to say that a little bit of that ending part again.
Yeah, like I know you're. I mean, Keasha, like the barbecue felt like a really cool, like kind of a crossover of worlds. It felt like there's your found family, and then this your genetic family, right? Like kind of together.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
I've been living in New York City for like 23 years. And I have a loving family of my own, some people come different places and they make families of their own, which I did. And I have so many different sides of my own friends' family that I'm a part of. So, it's like Christmas time comes, the holidays come, the kids ask for me, the aunts, the uncles ask for me. And, it's such a great feeling, to just be able to know that you have people that love you that's not even in your own bloodline. You know what I'm saying? And I have met so many people, outside in other places that we have became so attached to each other that we are family regardless of what, and it's a great feeling to know that not only do people look up to you, but you can look up to somebody as well. It's good to let our kids know nowadays that it's okay to be you. It's not what you, like my grandmother always said, and I will always live by it. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And regardless of who you are or what you do or what you decide to do with your life, it doesn't mean that you have to just how can I say it? not running in the ground, but disrespect the character that you're trying to present yourself as. You know what I'm saying? You can have 1,000 trans women or 1,000 trans people in one room, but that doesn't mean that every last one of us act the same, look the same, or like the same food, or whatever, I'm not even gonna say what I was going to say, but anyway, it's just funny how everybody is different in our own way. So you gotta take that part of you that's different and you have to use it to your advantage, let people know that there is, a difference between us and that we are still living among society in our own way.
Thank you, Keasha.
You don't only have to go to an LGBT group to see us. It's we're here. We're outside on the buses, the trains. We're taking walks in the parks. We're taking the dogs for walks. We have kids of our own. It's a whole different thing now. So, we sometimes we have to let people put away those old actions of what they think that we used to be. We are whole citizens. We've been citizens, but we're a part of the neighborhood now. Yeah.
Maya, you mentioned your relationship to spirituality, and I wanted to ask a little bit about that because I know, in the United States at least, right, religion is very, very, very much entwined with, rigid family structure, and I wanted to ask, if you had some perspective on, like your own, like growing into your own new understanding of religion, of a higher power, and perhaps more generous understandings of family within, these spiritual practices.
Well, for me, yes, more than religion, I would say it is more spiritual, extremely personal. And since I believe in Hindu religion, it's more one sees a divine being in every one, and so everyone is God in that sense. But within, for example, my biological family, religion has a very ritualistic meaning. You celebrate certain things, and it's a very heteronormative setup that my son and his wife and child have. And somehow, for me, I don't somehow fit into those rituals which are dictated by religion. But in my other family, the family of my choice, amongst my queer community, it's a very different sense of bonding and a kind of a relationship that is that somehow very fragile sometimes. It gets tested very often, unlike the biological family that seems very eternal and clustered, that you can bang on. But this is a little complicated. But a lot of us have come to realize as we age that there is something, a force beyond us that perhaps binds us together, because as such we don't have norms. So having that belief is very critical in living day-to-day life and being there for each other. But it's a very a small network, and outside it's not very safe for any one of us to really come out into the public, because you can be called out, you can be attacked. So for us as women, unlike trans men and trans women who are very visible, there is a possibility that you can choose to not uh, reveal your sexual identity, but gender identity is very evident. And with the laws and coming in, there's a slight shift, but still it continues to be unsafe. It's very difficult, for example, for couples belonging to different religions and spiritualities to live a life together. They are still attacked, and there is a lot of right now, as we know, the majoritarian ways of life and government. It's making it very hard for queer people. So we are making families. We have families, but nonetheless, the knock sometimes on the door is very frightening, and it can sometimes tear us apart. Especially when parents come and take away, dealing with a lot of backlash and trying to stay safe. And as we age, things become even more complicated because these are families that we have just formed. So who do we turn to support in these times? So it's not a very gray situation, but neither is it a very colorful situation. We live our lives as whatever the day brings for us.
Keasha?
Yes. I kind of understand what she's saying. You know, this was a conversation that me and one of my older friends was having a couple of days ago. There will never be, how can I say it? Well, okay, I'm just gonna say it. Fuck it.
Yes.
The King James version has stepped on us so fiercely that from the ages of when we were born till I guess the end of time, a lot of people will never think that we're supposed to be the type of people that we are. But if we were not meant to be who we were supposed to be, we would have never been in the Bible. We would have never been in all these things that want to cast us away because we're people just like anybody else. So whatever happened then and whatever continues to happen to the end of time, we have to always live in our truth because we're meant to be somebody. And of course they're going to always be attacked, but nowadays you can even be attacked just for being the nationality that you're born in. You don't even have to be attacked just because of being gay, queer, or non-binary or whatever you want to be. You're just being attacked for being Indian, Black, Haitian, whatever creation God made you. You're just being attacked just for being that. So, you have to always look behind your back no matter what. And then if you got gay, lesbian, and anything on top of that, then that's like a double whammy in the face. Okay, now you're gay, Black, trans, and all this extra shit that they didn't put in the book. So it's like, it's not to be attacked for only one thing now. They attack you for everything. But you got to be ready to attack back, honey. You got to be ready to attack back because there will be no way in hell I will be living my life comfortably and somebody just going to come and take it away. I'm going to fight for mine.
Shima, I want to turn to you next because I know we haven't yet heard from you. What have you observed in the making of this film and also in your personal life about going from a disciple to teacher, from a daughter to mother in found families, and what does that transition look like? Does it look like anything?
Yeah, I think like those roles are very important within queer and trans communities. I think especially for people of color because we don't necessarily have the same examples that our white counterparts have. And so being able to find somebody to look up to and find somebody to connect to on a familiar level is so important. I think especially as a Black person, because for me, most of my biological family I don't have a relationship with, and there is very much a longing for the aunties and the maternal figures and the uncles that I no longer have contact with, and being able to find that in people that I can look up to as teachers really feels like a piece of my soul that has been missing for a really long time. And I think being able to get that in some way, shape, or form automatically makes you want to turn around and give that to the next generation because you know what it feels like to have a piece of your community who did understand you. Like as a Black person living in a world that is run by majority white ideology, the people who really stood there and showed community to me was my Black ancestors, my Black family, and my Black community. And that looks drastically different now with me being queer and trans and non-binary, and like having people of the trans community to fill those gaps is so vital that I think for me, when I happen to see other members of the community who are just coming up, knowing how the elders have helped me, I think it does make me want to turn around and pay that forward. So that way they can have the same type of love and appreciation and familiar ties that they may not necessarily have from their own biological families.
Thank you. And I want
Thank
to turn.
you.
Yeah, Maya, do you want to contribute?
No, I just thanked her.
Excellent. Well, I did want to. You're welcome. This next question is open to all. I did want to talk a little bit about like a fear of rejection and a fear of discrimination. This being, especially in an institutional context, almost as damaging as the real thing. And this fear really distorts time. I was really interested in, Vijayta in particular. I know you did you looking into like retirement homes. In the United States, we have, right, for-profit healthcare, and, these institutions that weren't built for queer people and kind of put everybody outside of their purview. I would be really interested to hear what all of you think about extending acceptance and inclusivity on an institutional level. Is there a way beyond, we've been talking a lot about family, but to do that?
I think that so the fear of rejection and discrimination is very persistent, and I kind of want to address this first because we spoke about religion and spirituality. I kind of want to address that bit first, and I'll go to the next part. So at least like in the Indian context, religion is a very contentious issue, but it's also about being at the intersection of multiple things. So for instance, you could be queer, you could belong to a particular religion, but you could also belong to a particular caste. So in especially amongst the religious institutions, if you do belong to a particular marginalized community, you don't get to access those religious institutions, because you're at the intersection of these multiple identities and you stand at this particular access. So that kind of, discrimination is quite rampant. So, and now when it comes to the care centers and old age homes, it's there as well, because I think Maya can speak to this much better because she has actually been on the lookout for shelters where she feels safe. I remember speaking while I was reporting on the story, I remember speaking to this lesbian couple and they wanted to speak anonymously. They live in a shelter home, which is run by missionaries, and they are not, they haven't revealed their, sexual identities to them because they don't want to be outed, because they know that they will not get that acceptance from the shelter home. So they've just told them that, oh, we're friends, we live like friends. So that kind of fear is quite, it's quite prevalent. And I don't, there's still an ongoing conversation as to how we can address it, but we haven't really found those solutions yet. But there are some people trying in terms of queer people starting queer homes, not just for queer people who are elderly, but queer people who get, abandoned by their families or rejected by their families, safe spaces for them. But I think that's still at a much more nascent stage.
And I think, like going back to your point about religion, like if I think about my upbringing in the Christian church, like specifically in the Baptist church, like the Black church is like the forefront of the community. And if you can't find community anywhere else, if you can't find people who will tell you that you are smart and you are deserving and you should go after the things that you want, like the Black church, the people in the Black church will be the ones to tell you that, even when the rest of society won't. And there is a huge cutoff that happens, like you said, when you don't have access to those things because you are queer or because you are trans. And it is a complete disconnect from this little voice that you would automatically have in your head telling you that you were somebody who was important and worthy in a world that is constantly telling you that you're not necessarily that. And so there is a true disconnect and kind of a loss of community that happens when you no longer have access to the Black church in the same way, at least for me. And I think that also ties into education as an institution, as somebody who's been in the educational system for many years. I do think in some instances there is an idea of being inclusive, but I think there is a lack of considerations in terms of what actually goes into that. I think people think inclusivity means including people into spaces, but they're not necessarily doing the work past that to make sure those people feel included. And a lot of times, and like this is just from my own experience, when you do try to speak up or say something, it is very much belittled, or it's your turn to be the teacher, or, you know, clearly what you're saying can't necessarily be happening, or you need to be gentle with me because it's my first time coming across somebody like you. When I think there isn't necessarily understanding that, like, in the educational space, you're not the only person who I'm coming across where I'm having to deal with this. It's not just you, it's in another classroom, it's somebody in the administration, it's people outside of the educational system altogether. And so I think there is a lot of weight that's put on for queer and trans people to be patient and understanding and hope that the system in and of itself will do the right thing. And I feel like that's not necessarily all the case. Like, that's not necessarily the case all the time. And I think it does hinder some people from going into that system themselves. I think especially when they're trans, and I'm curious what Keasha's experience has been like, kind of maneuvering through the educational system as she's like trying to get her GED and move on to bigger and better things.
For us in India, actually, when I look back, I find that the dissenting religions. For example, when Dalit people were not allowed to enter temples, there was this whole form of Ramsney and other forms of worship within the Bhakti tradition. And a lot of women who were being forced to marry actually found refuge in these dissenting religions. And you could, in my fieldwork, I have found women who have lived with each other in these religious spaces. But of course, like I shared earlier, you cannot reveal your sexual choices, sexual identity. But gender identity as a trans man or a trans woman is fairly evident. And though the word used is not trans, it is often the male form called Babu. And that's how women have survived several years within the religious institution, because not being married and not available in the sense of sexually available and being asexual is a one way of achieving God. And so women felt safe to live there and have continued to do so. That's why I speak of a legacy within religious texts and dissenting religions. It's interesting where women have found space, and I specifically of biologically female-bodied people, queer people, I mean.
I was curious, Keasha, like, what's your experience like been in like institutions like that? Be it like the church, like any religious institution, or like any educational institutions?
Me? Just about any institution just about any type of institution that I have been involved with has always had different experiences. I have never went to one and it felt anything similar. It's always been different. You know, even as I gotten older and see other people that are just like me, and this might be their first experience, but for me, it's always something new because nothing has ever been the same for me. Like, Only thing that's ever been the same to me is like maybe my family and my friends. Going to try something new and different when it comes involving, change of life. It always been a little different. And maybe sometimes I'm not the only person that feel like that. But I know it's never that I walk into a situation and it's the same. Even if it's the same situation, each day of it is totally different. It's like there's never no similarities or anything when it comes to my life. It's always been just, oh my God. So it's like, yeah, I'd be excited, but then once I get there, it'd be like, oh shit, and oh God, now what is gonna happen now? So I mean, it's not a bad thing. Everybody wants an exciting life, but sometimes you just wish that it wasn't always like that, or do I have to always be the one to make things what it is, or is it me? But I don't know, getting older, hey, I guess it's not so bad. I mean, every experience that you have to learn from and you take it with you through life, and it makes you who you are. I will say things are a little bit more easier now since as you get older, you tend to love yourself more and you tend to actually become who you are. So you move a little bit more at ease. But I thank God for that. I've had many friends that have passed away way before now. Even with myself being on my own deathbed 2 times. I mean, hey, I'm still here for a reason. And I'm still pretty, honey. So yeah.
I did want to ask both Keasha and Maya. I wanted to ask, what is it like? Because I know journalism itself is kind of an institution. Whether or not we're acting as individual journalists or as part of an outlet. Like, what is it like?
That's a whole lot more deeper, honey. Like
you
got to go deep into things. And oh God, if I was to go that deep into things and being a journalist, oh my God, you know how mean I would be. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's great. I mean, I
would have attitude with the world every day, like you motherfuckers and all this. I like, because y'all got to go deep into the facts of things. You just can't get a little bit of information and think that's going to be it. Like, y'all have to go deep into the root of the situation. And child, I'll probably be so mad at the world. If somebody say hey to me, I probably just smack the out of it. I'll be on the news as the smacking lady. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, girl. And then you look at different nationalities of people, and then y'all go and look at another nationality and see what the similarities and things like that. Oh my God.
Well, yeah, that would be a lot to me. On your end, like, what has it been like, to have your story told? I know, Vijayta, Rajvi, and Shima, like I think it's all different mediums, right? It's kind of an experimental kind of digital age of journalism, but like what is it like?
What was very interesting was it was that a lot of people, well, I don't know, a lot of people don't get to really tell the truth about what it really is, and me, something like you remember the show Pose that was out for a minute? A lot of people think, oh, it was fake, but in all reality, those are some of the things that I had to go through in order to get to where I'm at right now. And yes, I've had my days where I've had to sleep on the streets. I didn't have to, but that's what I chose to do. That's why I felt comfortable at the time. It's been times where, yeah, I've had to be a prostitute and sell my ass. Yeah, those are things that I've had to do to, make my life better. And, it wasn't only for me. Sometimes it was for me and my sisters or vice versa. It was a lifestyle at one time. But, we have to all, and it wasn't only just me. It was a whole lot more girls going through situations that were worse than just only mine. Some people were getting raped just to live in a house or sleep in a bed with somebody. I have girlfriends that have gotten beat, and just to get beat and lay in a comfortable bed beside this motherfucker just to get a comfortable sleep. Like, what type of comfortability would it be to have to get beat on before you be able to lay down and have a good night's rest? I wouldn't be able to have a good night's rest. I'll be in my sleep, bright-eyed, ready to see what his next move gonna be. You know what I'm saying? But if that's comfortability to some people, imagine what comfortability really is to some other people, you know? So, being able to tell my truth and, to let people know that no, it's not just a TV show, shit really goes on. You know what I'm saying? So, you have to be able to, look at something and be like, these are the truth of some people. So and I'm glad to tell mine. I wish there were a whole lot of other girls and other people that could just be honest and say what it is, regardless of the fact that being ashamed of it, it's not what you're doing at the present time.
Mhm.
Vijayta and Maya, this one is for both of you, and I know it's particular to India in this case. But what were some of the challenges that you faced? I know you mentioned in your article, how it was difficult to get folks to talk on record. What can you tell us a little bit about what that was like? And then Maya, on your end, how you came to Vijayta and you guys began talking on record.
Yeah, it's actually been a very difficult story to tell, mostly because of how vulnerable it makes the other person feel.
Yeah.
It's just so tough for people to really just bear it all and talk about what they're going through. I spoke to queer people with disabilities who really need a constant caregiver with them, and how this gets impacted by them getting older as well. So I think it's really got to do with the vulnerability aspect, and also just the courage it takes, and also the risk. It is very, very risky to tell your story. So a lot of people didn't speak to me because they just didn't want to engage, and they just wanted to go on living their lives. A lot of people spoke to me anonymously. And I feel like those who did, like Maya and the other people as well who went on record, have been extremely brave, because it is a very risky thing to do. The other aspect is that so many people aren't out to their families yet, and these are people who are above 50, above 60, and it's not this pre coming out and post coming out. These hard lines just don't exist. It's all very gray, right? So because the stigma is so prevalent, despite the fact that we've decriminalized same-sex sexual activity, that laws don't necessarily change how we think and how we feel, how society thinks and feels and behaves. So I think it was extremely challenging. And not to say that there aren't older queer people. There are. It's just that the time it takes, it took us nearly 9 months to complete the story, because of the people we were speaking to, the kind of people we were looking for, and just getting people to also trust in us and our project.
That trust feels, kind of at the crux of it all. I wanted to turn. Go ahead.
It really is.
It's so hard for people. It's so hard for people that are part of the LGBT community already have secrets, and a lot of secrets are dark and ashamed, because a lot of things have been introduced in the bad way through their own family, being sexual molested, by their own cousins or fathers or family members, and having to come out of that closet alone, the closet that you're really trying to come out of, is very hurtful. I'm not a journalist, but I have seen friends of my own, that just want to have a heart and just go, oh my God. Oh my God. I will never forget the day I took my friend home for Christmas, and their father came outside with a shotgun. And the only thing they wanted to do was see their family for Christmas. It's crazy how people lifestyle is, so different from everybody's loving and caring and things like that. Um, I'm just so thankful to have my own family that loves me. You know, many a times I've seen people so scared, even growing up having friends scared to come out of the closet because they're scared what their parents are going to do to them. You know, and to actually see that with your own eyes is something scary. I was never in a million years can imagine my father or my grandparents or anybody coming at me with a shotgun, like literally to my face and telling me to get off of their yard. You know, those are some hurtful things to see. You know, and to, you know, have friends that, you know, they'll open up to you that they haven't open up to anybody else, and will tell you how their cousins have molested them, or you know, or they've gotten raped just on spending the night at somebody's house. You know, it's just a lot of things I've heard in my own lifetime that I feel sad for a lot of other people. And you know, and to this day they're still sheltered in their own minds and scared to even talk about it.
Mhm.
Maya, how did you come to trust Vijayta in your relationship? You know, how did you guys develop that? Because I know it's, you know, as Keasha's saying, you know, there's so much the trauma, you know, collectively that builds up with so over the years.
Well, trust is not easy to give, and it took us quite some time. In fact, before I really began to open up, and we actually I'm seeing her for the first time, my interviewer on the screen. We still have to meet physically. So, in one sense, it was very good to not to have a direct interaction, because I was talking to some anonymous person, and yet at the same time, struggling. What should I do with this story that is so complicated, not always happy and not always bad? And her probing questions actually did make me reflect a lot. Uh, sort of, otherwise, the tendency is every day is such a struggle. You want to just let it be under the carpet and go on with your next day. But having someone talk to you, ask, wait, and it was done so over a period of time. So a lot of the times, I also thought about me writing people's stories, and it made me rethink how I would do it differently. But the fact is that at the end of the day, it did make me feel good about myself. The questions that I had not asked myself, I had to look them in the face. So I think it's been a very useful partnership, and I think even though we haven't met, I feel some kind of a bonding with her. And now I look forward to meeting you in person next whenever you come. So
Yeah.
it's been really good to have your own story out there. Uh, but it was difficult to really answer all her questions. But I'm very thankful that she also kept some of my answers to herself. So it was also sharing things that we perhaps would not want to go public. And I think she understood that. And that is also, it creates a bond, which is very, I think it should last for a lifetime. That's
Thank
very
you
good
so much for
to
trusting
have
me, Maya.
someone.
Thank you so much. I'm almost
No,
gonna cry,
it's
but I will not.
no, it's not to say to hear a thanks. Really, it's been good to talk. I've written my own story several times, but to be asked questions and to be so gently asked and to be waited and to be pursued, it was really wonderful. So I too should thank you, but I will not. Keep it when I meet you next.
Uh, I'll just like to add a small thing. So I think first of all, thank you to Keasha and Maya for sharing like some
Mhm.
parts of your life that are perhaps not that easy to share. So thank you for being open about that, and hope that you are feeling okay. And other than that, I would say just a little bit toward the journalism bit. Like I've been a journalist for a while, and I think yes, it's very 100% so important to do it well. But I think one of the main things is to just show up and not be like parachuting in and out of places and in and out of people's lives without no accountability, as if a relationship wasn't formed. And so I think, yeah, and yeah, I think that's all. I think showing up, nothing
Yeah.
replaces showing up. Yeah, Tashima, what do you think?
I completely agree. And I think that I really have to laud the Pulitzer Center for this, because it's not just the journalist that's getting to speak their piece, it's also the people we report on that get to be a part of this as well. And that completely kind of, you know, uh, uh, removes this power dynamic that also exists between reporters and the people that they report on. So thank you so much for this. I'm really glad that, you know, Maya and Keasha could be here, and you know, we can be, you know, this is a partnership, as Maya said.
Thank
Yeah.
y'all too.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thank
Yes,
all
thank
of you.
you.
I really, the partnership is a great word. And I wanted to ask, I know Rajvi, oh, go ahead, Rajvi. Yeah.
Sorry, one second. I think Tashima was about to say something.
Yeah, Tashima.
Oh, no, I was just going to second what Rajvi said. Like having that accountability, I think is a really huge way of building trust. And it means, yeah, it means showing up and being transparent and being honest and having a partnership with the people that you work with, and like taking them along with the ride, so that way they can take you along with them as they go through life. And I don't really think that you can tell hugely intimate, nuanced stories if you don't have that bridge of trust built, because something really beautiful comes out of that. And I think it's really seen in the pieces that do take the time to build trust. Yeah, and I also recognize that like time is a really big, it's a really big entity that we don't necessarily have in journalism, that I really wish we would like try to find other ways to really put in the time, especially when it comes to marginalized communities that we don't necessarily know and who don't necessarily trust journalists. I think really being able to build that partnership is so essential and important to telling stories, and to being able to tell stories about that community in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Tashima. And my last
Thank
question
you.
to both you and Rajvi is, you know, what was it like to, how did you connect with Keasha? You know, what did that first initial connection look like before we end things? Because I know we gave Vijayta and Maya a little bit of
This is a
time to
very
talk.
interesting story, honey.
Keasha, do you want to tell it then?
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's great to know you and see you. Hello, I just want to say it's great to hear
I was
you.
like, who are these two little young children coming up to me talking about? I was like, oh my God.
Oh no.
They were
Oh my
they were the
God.
sweetest things ever. And you know, they were, I don't know, maybe they were doing a little bit more observant than what I was, because they looked so young and innocent. I'm like, oh my God, what these children want? And as I got to know them way before they even asked me anything about doing this, I got to know them as people first. And that, I think that was just like the best part ever, you know. And when they asked me to do this, I felt more comfortable because I felt that I knew them already. You know, it's a difference when somebody just comes up to you all of a sudden and you probably get to meet them like once or twice, and then they be like, can you do this for me? But I got to know them like as friends before they even asked me anything about this. So that was very great. And they were able to see occasions in my life that and not only that, they got to know me as well. They know what I get excited about, certain things that I like. I love birthdays, I love gifts, I love me. I like, you know, they got to know me. And when they're around me, it's not even like they're journalists. It's like they're my friend. Well, they are my friends. They are my friends. So it's like when they're around me, it's like we know each other and they're comfortable. You know, I live a different lifestyle than what they do. and I'm maybe a little older than them. So, you know, a lot of things they have heard of or probably haven't experienced, they see it around me and my friends because, you know, we're very much older and open. Well, you know, a little bit more seasoned and open. Let's not put the age thing on there, you know. But but you know, it's just a blessing to know that people get to know you. And then when they found out what your story really is, you can actually tell them the whole story and not give them half of it. You know, sometimes you don't know people, you be like, I'm not telling them bitches my business. But you know, when you get to know people, you be like, okay, now I know that I can tell them my truth instead of hiding what little bit I don't want them to know, you know, because you know, when you give them the whole story, you know, it's a little bit more better project than getting half of it.
Thank you, Keasha. I love you.
Y'all,
Yes,
I love y'all
thank you.
too.
Love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not crazy online, honey. I'm crazy off the time.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for taking the time today to speak online. I wanted to drop for all of our participants both the Long Shadows in the Sunset as well as a trailer for Mother Wit in the chat, and obviously I will include these, you know, in our newsletter to follow. Before we go, I'm going to share my screen very briefly. I wanted to extend a quick ask, you know, which is we appreciate, you know, everyone in the audience, and we really, if you're able, would love if you're able to become a Pulitzer Center champion and support our work. So you're welcome to visit that link if that's of interest. Finally, a survey will follow at the end of this webinar. And as I mentioned at the top, really appreciate it if you could take it to help improve our events. And you'll see that at the end screen, the end session, as well as get a follow-up email with it. So yeah, I thank you again for joining us today, all of you, and for being vulnerable. It's you know, this was an incredible conversation. So thank you, and
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
yeah,
everybody.
well, y'all
Very
take
nice
care.
talking.
Thank you.
Love you all. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, love you
Bye.
too. Y'all have a great day. Bye now.
Yeah, you too.